are we to have Kate Mulgrew here at Book Passage.
Very good.
I'd like to say good evening and welcome to Book Passage. Thank you for coming out and supporting what we do here and having these wonderful authors and speakers come to us in an independent bookstore. My name is Melissa Sestaro, and I am honored and thrilled to be introducing author Kate Mulgrew to Book Passage tonight. Many of you know Kate from her stellar role of Captain Catherine Janeway on Star Trek. And prior to that, she played Mary Ryan on Ryan's Hope.
Smaller. Go back, David.
And now we get to see her in the wonderful dramatic role of Red in Orange is the with both beauty and sophistication, who has won us over many times. And now she has written an incredible memoir, Born with Teeth. In this story, Kate shares her struggles as a young woman and the choices she made along the way as a mother, a wife, and a working actress. We get to travel with her to Italy and to Hollywood and go on some pivotal auditions that shaped Kate's career. In these pages, there's romance, heartbreak, humor, courage, and so much more. It is with great pleasure that we welcome Kate Mulgrew to Book Passage.
Thank you, Melissa, who has herself written a book. A wonderful book. It's a memoir. What's the title?
Pieces of My Mother.
Pieces of My Mother. We're all writing about our mothers. It's okay. Yes, so they tell me I've written a book. And I'll be 60 in about 10 days' time. And you may well ask why. Why did I wait till now? Or why did I even do it? And I think I did it because I wished to be known. I've been an actress for so long, for 40 years. And whereas that has been a beautiful cloak, it has sheltered and hidden certain aspects of who I am, which is the fundamental me. The me that was shaped by my mother, by the deaths of my sisters, by an unexpected pregnancy at the age of 21. I gave that child up for adoption, instantly regretted it, and spent the next 20 years searching for her. I found her. In between, I was engaged about 8 times. Don't ask. This you have to read. But on that journey, I did fall deeply in love with a man. I've written at length about him, my second husband, Tim Hagen. But in every chapter of this memoir, which was written in complete isolation at the seaside, and I adored it, is explained to you as a reader what has shaped me as a human being. Starting with my mother and going through the relationships that have been pivotal to me and defining. So I'd like to read a couple of passages that might tell you more clearly what it's about than my going on and on. All right, let me get this in place. I haven't done this. I'm going to start at the beginning. I started out in a greenhouse with a red door in a small town where mysteries abounded. Immediately after issuing me into the world, my mother took me to this house and put me in a shoebox, which she placed on the dining room table so that one and all might come and gaze upon my perfect miniature beauty. Hands like starfish, to hear her tell it, grave but ravishing cornflower blue eyes, and, most remarkable of all, a set of baby teeth. 2 pearls on top and 2 nonpareil on the bottom. Shakespeare, my mother said, would have a field day. The neighborhood ladies were not impressed and stood there in silent judgment with arms crossed over pregnant stomachs. It wasn't good form to crow about your child's beauty, especially considering the vast numbers of children that populated those Irish-German households. My mother, however, was undaunted and maintained her frantic vigil until she convinced herself that I, her first daughter, was growing even tinier than I had been at birth. Alarmed, she rushed me to the hospital and demanded that I be incubated. Dr. Sharp, her obstetrician, shook his head, but to no avail. And so it was in that strange aquarium of light and warmth, my mother's face pressed against the glass, I developed a constitution that could only ever be described as able and hardy. My father observed my growing appetite for solid food with ill-concealed contempt. Jesus H. Christ, he would mutter, as I shoved yet another fistful of banana pudding into my mouth. I'm going to the Lux Club for a belt. Of course, the Lux Club at happy hour was thick with young Catholic fathers, looking for a quick reprieve before heading home to their harried wives and hordes of screaming children. These strapping Irish boys would then stumble home to find the madhouse magically transformed into an oasis of quiet. Children tucked in, dishes done, the lovely young wife lying achingly still in the bed. He might whisper, "Shh," if she started to turn, and then, oh so quickly, the nightgown was up over her thighs, and the deed was done in a lightning flash, so that neither he nor she could ever remember with nostalgia the actual moment in which any of their children was conceived. My father was not surprised when Dr. Sharp visited and announced that I would need a special crib, one with bars on all sides as well as over the top, because would you believe it, said the good doctor, that this kid has no sense of pain. Mother was delighted by the novelty of this condition and stood stoically by as my baby teeth were pulled, quickly and without incident, so as to prevent my eating them. I was too young to wink with intention, but I like to think I caught my father's eye as he pulled on his overcoat and invoked yet again the name of his secret friend, Jesus H. Christ. That sets the stage. You understand a little bit about my parents, right? So I'm just going to jump ahead and read another one, a longer one, if you don't mind. If you do mind, I won't. All right? But this one will really clarify how I grew up and survived. My mother attended the president's funeral and returned a week later, just in time to have her 8th baby. This time, she stayed in the hospital longer than she had with any of her other deliveries. But what was most troubling was the appearance of a young farm girl at the back door one afternoon. A plain, straw-haired girl who carried a suitcase and said her name was Dora Lamb, and could she please come in? My father escorted this girl into the kitchen and introduced her as a mother's helper. She was to live in the maid's room, and evidently she was going to help our mother. When my mother came home, we all gathered in the front yard to greet her. Dad helped her out of the car, and smiling, she walked toward us carrying a pink bundle in one arm and a shopping bag in the other. She turned to Dora Lamb, transferred the pink bundle to her arms, and said, "Her name is Jenny. Good luck." Then she went into the house, all of us trailing behind her like ducklings, and when she reached the TV room, she took off her coat, reached into the shopping bag, and withdrew what looked like a large jar of preserves. She then proceeded to pull an ottoman over to the fireplace, and in one deft move, she jumped onto it, kissed the jar, and placed it with 2 hands dead center on the mantelpiece. "I think I'd like a drink," she called to my father, and sailed into the kitchen. We all ran to the fireplace, mad with curiosity, and climbing onto whatever pieces of furniture we could, examined the mysterious jar. It was filled with amber liquid, in which were floating my mother's ovaries, which, just before she'd gone under, she had instructed Dr. Sharp to pickle. On the ride home, she had taken out one of her felt pens, and on a broad strip of medical tape she had stolen from the operating room in which her hysterectomy had been performed, she had written in bold black ink, "From whence you sprang." My parents decided that the Derby Grange schoolhouse was somehow insufficient to meet our intellectual needs, and so we were transferred to the local Catholic grammar school, which was called, disturbingly, Resurrection. A flat and unprepossessing building, it sat amid acres of farmland and had little to recommend it from my point of view, other than a small woman named Sister Benedict, who taught the 5th grade and who first recognized in me the poet I longed to become. She was a plain woman with a severe overbite and kind, beautiful brown eyes. The sisters often attended Mass with the parishioners, And one Sunday I was keenly aware of Sister Benedict's watchful eyes on my family. My father knelt at one end of the pew, and next to him, in various states of regrettable posture, were Tom, Joe, Laura, Tess, Sam, Jenny, myself, and finally, Mother, who was not kneeling at all, but instead sat on the bench with legs crossed and a thermos of coffee open beside her, and in her hands a book entitled The Ethics of Spinoza. The next day at school, Sister Benedict stopped me in the hall and said, "Your mother's a very interesting person, isn't she? Maybe you'd like to invite her to the poetry contest next week. She seems like the kind of person who might enjoy that." Home I went, full of happy anticipation. When I told my mother that not only had I been writing poetry on the sly, but that it appeared my poems were of exceptional quality because Sister Benedict had chosen me out of the entire 5th grade to compete in the Resurrection School annual poetry contest that was to be held the following week. "Not only that, Mom," I said, "but she wants you to come and hear me recite my poems." My mother cocked her head and, looking at me curiously, said, "I think I have something for you, kitty cat girl." I followed her up the front stairs to her bedroom, where she kept a collection of her favorite books in a corner bookshelf near the window. She pulled out a slim volume of the blue and white cover and handed it to me. "This is a terrific poem about World War I by the writer Alice Duer Miller, and it's called The White Cliffs. I think when you finished reading your original poems, you should just surprise the nuns and just sail right into this one and see what happens. Fun, don't you think?" My mother's idea of fun was a 50-page poem about an American girl and an English aristocrat who meet in London on the eve of World War I and fall in love. We follow the young woman's narrative through romance, marriage, childbirth, war, the death of her husband, and finally into her middle age, at which point she stands overlooking the white cliffs of Dover and says, "I'm American bred. I have seen much to hate here, much to forgive. But in a world where England is finished and dead, I do not wish to live." On the afternoon of the poetry contest, we were all led into the school auditorium, which doubled as the cafeteria, and told to take our seats as designated. The nuns and priests and a few of the ladies who worked the lunch shift sat on one side of the room, and the entire rest of the school body sat on the other. We, the poets, were given seats of honor in the very front row. The program began, and I sat stiffly through what I considered several really boring readings of very bad poems until at last my name was called. I walked to the podium with my sheaf of poems in hand and looked out over the crowd. Kids of all ages and sizes, girls in ill-fitting uniforms and boys sporting John Deere caps, most of whom were making inappropriate sounds and fidgeting wildly in their metal chairs. On the other side of the room, the nuns and priests regarded me in austere silence. Suddenly, something at the back of the room caught my eye, and in a moment of tremendous relief and joy, I recognized my mother in her ubiquitous gray sweater, a red kerchief tied around her hair, leaning casually against the door. She acknowledged me with a small smile and a covert rolling of her hand, which I had been trained to understand meant, "Get on with it." After I read my 5 original poems, I eagerly awaited the response of my audience, but there was none. Sister Benedict clapped once or twice out of Christian charity, but other than that, it was dead quiet. At that moment, I pulled the white cliffs from my blazer pocket, and taking a deep breath and without explanation, began to read. I didn't stop until I had read the whole thing. When I was finished, I looked up and realized, with a pang, that my mother was no longer standing in the back of the room. She had moved closer, and now stood next to the row of nuns, and she was clapping. The nuns were applauding too, but something else was happening that I found even more disconcerting. Most of the nuns had tears streaming down their cheeks. Sister Mary Elizabeth was laughing and crying simultaneously, and Sister Benedict was standing, clapping delightedly and beaming with pride. On the way home, my mother was silent. This did not bode well, I knew. And although I was devastated, I turned my back to her and, feigning indifference, stared out the window as we drove past Bruno's Creek and started up the long gravel road toward home. Just as we were about to drive through the stone gates, my mother suddenly switched off the ignition and turned to face me. "You know, kitten, I watched you today, And it dawned on me that you can either be a mediocre poet or a great actress. Now, which do you think you'd rather be? I didn't know what to say to her then, but as it turned out, no words were necessary. The following night, I found the complete works of William Shakespeare tucked under my pillow, and a note from my mother which read, "Find what you love, and the rest will follow." As you can see, my mother is arguably the great love of my life. But I did have to wait until both of my parents were dead to consider writing this book, because I have to write honestly of what shaped me, and they were eccentric, and they were dramatic, they were extravagant, and they were Irish. So they were flawed. But in that fractured state was a great deal of beauty. And so I think that they are responsible for the essential me, and then the things that befell me thereafter further defined me. But I would like to take questions, because this is what I prefer. It's a way of opening up in a sort of more natural way, rather than discussing my entire life. Have any of you actually read the book? One lady has read the book. Stand up and ask away. Do you have a question?
Actually, I don't have a question, but I do want to thank you. Not only for the memoir, but also for something that you did at an Alzheimer's benefit that you did many years ago, when you told the story of Miss Lucy and how she helped your mom.
Yes, she was great. And still is great.
Yeah, and I've noticed that in your writings, and even Miss Connie has told stories about Miss Lucy that are kind of cute.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank you especially for that, because my aunt has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's tough.
My mom's sister, and my mother is devastated.
Your mother is devastated.
Totally
Yeah,
devastated.
she will be.
And I was able to use your story to help calm her down and help her see that, even though things are going to happen in a certain way, and there isn't necessarily a light at the end of the tunnel, there's a way to
the
deal
light
with
goes
it.
out.
The light goes out, right. And that's what I was
That's
trying
the
to
problem
tell
with
her.
this tunnel, love.
Right, and that's what I told her.
You have to prepare the people around.
Right, and I realized that by using your story about how you helped your mom and how Miss Lucy helped your mom, I was able to calm my mother down. And
That's
she
good.
was able to find support within her own group.
That's very gratifying.
And I
Thank you.
realized because of you, I had more strength than I thought I did. And I really, really thank you
Good.
for that. I
Oh.
love you for that.
Thank you.
so much.
That's great. I write in the book about my first glimmer of my mother's sickness, which was so horrifying. Yes, do you have a question?
Yes. Captain Janeway was divine in Star Trek's Deep Space Nine.
No, Voyager.
I'm sorry. A great guitarist. Sorry about that. I'm a little nervous. Anyway, I wear this shirt in your honor.
Thank you.
Uh,
You're going to have to switch me with the other guy.
There we go. A great guitarist is Eric Clapton. Janeway was a great captain.
Thank you.
My question for you today is, what were your favorite episodes in Star Trek, and what was it like to film Star Trek San Francisco scenes?
Oh, right, I did that. Well, we shot those in LA, as is so often the case. Right.
Were there any scenes in San
Great for
Francisco?
Hollywood. Yeah.
As you know, the Federation in San Francisco.
Yeah. It's impossible to name my favorite episodes, really, because I shot it for 7 years, 26 a year. Anything I ever did with Q, I loved. I loved an episode called Counterpoint and another one called Death Wish. I loved The Year of Hell parts 1 and 2. I loved when Janeway could be physical, I adored that. I did all my own stunts. I loved all my stuff in the holodeck with Da Vinci, because that was my idea. I thought Janeway was a bit too, not rigid, but I thought she was a bit too scientific. And I said, if we're going to be lost in the Delta Quadrant, it's my fault. Obviously, it's not a gas station. I need to find a way to lift everybody up. So she needs to be more creative. She needs to be looser. Who can I have a dialogue with that will help me, that will help me grow? And And I said to Rick Berman, let's make it Leonardo da Vinci. And so we had this relationship, and the holodeck was splendid. Lasted a season, I think. Right? That was the end of that. That was my one great relationship with a man. Yes.
Despite your early failure at poetry, you wrote a book. How did you get the courage to do that?
That's a good question.
Well,
I don't know if it's courage. It's time. It's everything coming together at once in a beautiful way. As I just said, they needed to die. That sounds harsh, but it's true. I loved them deeply, and in no way would I even have remotely stung them. Do you know? Some of this stuff is terribly honest. The parents needed to die, and I needed to let go of my vanity, which I did when I was offered the role of Galina Redbreastnikov on Rochester. And I summarily just plucked my vanity and threw it out the window. And in the relinquishing of that thing that had tethered me to so much of narrowness in life, I realized how deep I could go. And that it was very, very, very important for a woman who had played nothing but heroines her life long through. I should expose myself or reveal myself as the vulnerable person that I truly am. It's nothing but a succession of vulnerabilities that have truly shaped my character. So I wished to be known. It's that simple, and it's that profound. And I have chosen to do it now. You look petrified for me. It's daunting though, and it is scary.
we grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, so we
Did you?
understand. We
Did
understand
you?
this. Yeah. Würzburgers. Yeah.
You're Würzburgers. How are you? What's your name?
Ruth and Jane.
How
Jack's
are you,
our
ladies?
cousin, and Laura.
Are you living here now?
Laura King lived. Oh yeah, for a long time. Laura
Hey,
King lived down the
Jack.
street from us.
And
You
Tom
see,
was in
6
my
degrees. Tom Mulgrew, my brother.
It's in my class.
Oh.
I know. No, but it's great to see you.
Oh,
Great
we're
to see
thrilled
you
to be
here.
here. So I
Thank
love this Irish-German story stuff. It's great.
So you know, right? That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
community.
Yeah.
The Naked City.
Very, very
We're
Catholic.
Irish.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm from Dubuque also, and that's
No
where
way! What did you all do? Take a bus?
I grew up in Dubuque for the first 24 years of my life.
Oh, what's your last
And
name?
my father-in-law is Arnold Catham, who had the Dubuque Star Brewery.
Oh!
Yes.
Veritable Magnus. We love Star Brewery. They
And
love
I don't
that
know,
beer.
My dad had a
Star.
service station on 17th and West Locust.
Yes, he did.
Where is this?
How very weird. Who else is from Dubuque? Well, we'd like to be. That's marvelous. How great in Marin County is the strangest thing. It's great to see you. Does anybody have any other question? Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, Kate. This is definitely a delight seeing you.
Thank you.
And I was wondering, do you have any humorous stories from Star Trek Voyager set involving the cast? Some of the crazy goings-ons throughout the years that you did the series.
Yeah, I write about it a little bit. I only touch on it in the book because Star Trek was, although a very big part of that decade, only has about a chapter in the book. But in it, I talk about what the boys would do to me. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. What they would do to me on a Friday night. There's a rule. There's no turnaround on a Friday into a Saturday for the Screen Actors Guild. So you can work straight through to dawn on Saturday, right? You can work straight through Saturday and call it a 5-day work week, right? So I would wrap, generally speaking, about 4 or 5 on Saturday morning. That would be called Friday night. That's going into almost 20 hours, right? And the producers got wise to the fact that the last close-up should be on Janeway. Right? She's been on her feet for 18 hours. She has to deliver 3 pages of technical babble, right? Revealing with species 8472. And it would be at that moment that the boys, Chakotay, Tim Russ as Tuvok, Garrett Wong, right behind his console, Robbie McNeil at the helm, would all start to take off their clothes. Soon they were all naked and dancing while I was delivering my monologue. So the thing was to check the tears of laughter, right? Which I never succeeded in doing. So it was take after take after take. They were ruthless with me. But that was fun. That got me through. Thank you for that question.
You were quite welcome.
Anybody else? Yes. Yes.
I saw the wonderful piece that they did with you, about you, this past Sunday morning on CBS. And I wonder if you would like to talk about your daughter.
Certainly I'll talk about I did not see the piece, but I was in it. And so was my daughter. It's hard to say this quickly. You know, it's very hard to be succinct about this, because this was big. I found myself pregnant at the age of 21. And I was starring in the role of Mary Ryan on a soap opera called Ryan's Hope, which was very popular. Complete and utter accident, right? Because I thought I was protecting myself. Didn't work. I went to Claire Levine, who was the executive producer, and I said, I have to resign. I'm pregnant. And she said, wait a minute, Katie. What if we write this into the story? And Mary Ryan will get pregnant. Mary Ryan will have the baby, and Mary Ryan will keep the baby, and it'll all be great. And I thought, good, this will save me and get me through. And the second phone call was to my mother. And that was a tough one, because Tessie had just died. My 14-year-old sister. Two of my sisters have died. The first one I murdered. Her name was Maggie. She was an infant, and if you read the book, you will see that I murdered her when I was 4 years old. They believe me, Nicole. I really believed that I murdered. You will see, believed that I murdered my sister. And then Tessie was diagnosed with a brain tumor at 12 and sent home to die at home. And at 14, she did die. And then I became pregnant. And I called my mother and I said, Mom, something has happened. I'm pregnant and I really need your help. I think that if you can take the baby initially, I will send whatever money I can make. We'll find a way to make this work for the first few months. And then I can. And there was a very short pause and my mother said, oh, Kitty, you've made a big mistake this time. I can't help you, darling. I'm completely lost in my grief with Tessie, and your father wouldn't hear of it. So you're going to have to do the right thing now. Step up to the plate. You know, and I want you to reach down deep and understand that you are brave and you are good, and you must give this baby up for adoption. You march over there to Catholic Charities and find yourself a social worker. This is my mother, the mother of 8 children, giving me this counsel. And then she said words that I have never forgotten. You're not the first actress to have an illegitimate baby, you know, and you won't be the last. And I followed her advice. I went over to Catholic Charities. I got a social worker. I carried the baby through to term on Ryan's Hope. 5 million people witnessed this on television. I gave the baby up. I returned to work 3 days later, and a monologue was handed to me, about 2 pages long, in which Mary Ryan carries her beautiful brand new baby into the living room and alone tells her how she will be loved, cared for, adored, through life, past death, and into the hands of God. And I gave the baby back to the stunt nurse. And I looked up the control room, which was dark, which it never was, but that day it was. I said, okay. I did it flawlessly. Yeah. And I left. So that shaped something, I don't know how to even explain it. I suppose certain soldiers might understand that, where you can get it here, but you stand up straighter. I knew that if I were gonna buckle in that moment, I might never, ever recover the essential me. So I didn't buckle, and I haven't. And I determined then to find her. And the Catholic Church closed the door. They would hear nothing from me. I begged and I pleaded, and I went to the Archbishop. I went to the head nun, who's on her deathbed. And they said, you understood the rules? No. I said, okay, we'll see. So I hired private investigators, and I found out that she had been adopted, not to the couple that I chose, but adopted out of state via the great Cardinal Cook, who had elected that it should be so. So it took me 20 years to find her, but I did find her. And here's the mystery of life, ladies and gentlemen. I found her at a gala honoring my great friend Nancy Addison Altman, who played Jillian on Ryan's Hope. She was dying of cancer at the time. And she was working for Incarnation Children's Center in Harlem. And a nun by the name of Sister Una McCormick was also responsible for the Incarnation Children's Center. And she had been the nun responsible for my adoption. And she was at the gala. And she asked to speak to me. And we went into a dark corner. And I looked at her. She hadn't changed at all. Same short cropped hair, gray eyes, cross. How wonderful to see you here, Kate. I didn't know that Nancy was your friend. I said, let's cut to the chase. It's time. Now I've done everything I can, Sister Una. Short of going public with something you do not want me to go public with. You are now going to help me find my baby. You're going to facilitate it because you're a woman of mercy and God. Aren't you? And she did, by God. She went home. She said, go home. You will receive documents by tomorrow. The same documents will be sent to your daughter. So I knew. She'd always known. She'd always known. Hail the Roman Catholic Church. And, I'm sorry. And when she got her documents, Danielle, my daughter, she filled them out. On the same day I filled mine out. We posted them at the same time. And 2 weeks later, at 5 a.m. in my dressing room at Paramount, the phone rang, and a voice said, is this Catherine Kiernan Mulgrew? I said, yes. Were you born on April 29th, 1955? Yes, I was. Did you or did you not give birth to a baby girl on May 3rd, 1977 at the University in New York City? And I said, yes, I did. She said, well, Miss Mulgrew, I think you should sit down. I believe we have a match. And if you stay there, your daughter will be calling you. I said, well, my daughter will be calling you, I'll be calling, who's calling what? It all went away. All I remember were the dust motes floating on the Venetian blinds. Your daughter will be calling you. I think the hardest and bravest thing I ever did was put that phone down. Can you imagine? My first link. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. And a voice is high and sweet. A note I'd never heard. Hi, this is Danielle. I said, hi, Danielle. My name is Kate Mulgrew, and I believe that I am your biological mother. Yes, and they tell me that I'm your biological daughter. I said, sweetheart, I don't know if you know this, but I'm an actress. And on the door. Kate, on the set, on the set. I opened that door. And I pulled him in like this. I mean, listen to me, you son of a bitch. You do not disturb me for 20 minutes or I promise you I will kill you. I will find you and I will kill you. Boom. Back to the phone. I said, I don't know if you know that I'm an actress, but they're coming to get me. And they won't stop until they do get me. And I'm not going to stop until I get an answer from you, so sweetie. I know this might be slightly aggressive, but you have to understand I only have a second. Can I see you? Can I see you? I don't know, I'll have to ask my parents. Would you ask them if I could see you this weekend? This was Wednesday. Could I come Friday? Let me see. They must have been sitting in the room, because I heard. Back she came to the phone. My parents said, it's okay. I said, you tell your parents that not only are they kind and generous, but that they are wonderful, and that I will meet you in the Charles Hotel at noon on Saturday. And I got into the lobby of the Charles Hotel at 9 a.m. and waited for 3 hours. And every person who came into that lobby, this is trauma, right, was my daughter. The 12-year-old boy on the skateboard, the 75-year-old, I'm not kidding, with her companion, right? Creaking down, I thought, maybe. Right? And then, of course, I saw her. Because it was me, crossing Harvard Drive, with her ink black hair to her hips, and the bandana tied here, and the backpack. She came in, she turned, she smiled. Kate! I thought to myself, my first words are going to be, you're going to have to help me up. But she led with mercy, and she led with compassion. And she had the mysterious thing that so few people do. She could forgive. And we have now been in one another's lives deeply for 18 years. And it just gets better and better. So that's the story of Mark in here. And at the same time, I met the love of my life, and I lost him. And in the very week that I reclaimed my daughter, the phone rang, and it was this man, Jim Hagen, trying to explain to me why he had dropped out of my life. And I said, well, you know, I don't really have any time to listen to you. I've become very busy. I'm doing a series called Star Trek Voyager, and I don't have any time. But it just so happens I have this Friday afternoon. I'll be at the Bel Air Hotel at 1 o'clock. Boom. I pulled up to the Bel Air. They opened the door. They escorted me in a sort of oily way. And the guy said, Miss Mulgrew, Commissioner Hagen is waiting for you at the bar. And that's where I end the story. I stepped out of the harsh sunlight into the cool shadows beyond. That's the end of the book. You'll have to read it. That's 47 years of my life. So there you go. Thank you. One way to tie up 47 years very quickly. Does anybody want to ask me anything else? Otherwise, I'll sign these books. Yes, please.
What, you're German and Irish in which way?
That's the German. It was a German-Irish community,
Oh.
but I'm almost all Irish.
You know,
A bit
from-
of German.
From where?
From Tyrone, but I go to Dingle. I go to County Kerry. I prefer it there. See, the north is a little too close to the opposition, if you know what I'm talking about. Yes, anybody else?
One last quick one.
Yes?
Did you play in Skippy the Bush Kangaroo in Australia?
No, I'm so sorry. I didn't.
I'll have to think of the other.
I'll never ever forget that you asked me that question. Yes.
You've had such an amazing career acting other people's scripts and stories and characters, and here you have this amazing character that is you.
Yeah.
Have you thought about somehow bringing yourself on stage through this work?
No. This is enough. And this process was beguiling, wonderful for me, right for me. You know, I'm one of 8 kids, lost 2 of them, brother and my sisters. You learn the yearning to be alone in this kind of marvelous isolation. Just shoots me right down to the ground. So I'd like to continue this process, if I may.
So you're going to write another book?
I'm looking at Little Brown now. I'd like to, but we have to sort of talk about that.
Do it.
Do it, she said. Star Trek her. Do it. Engage. Yes.
Tell me, how do your siblings feel about your book?
Good question. You have siblings, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. When this question is asked, I know. It's up and down. There are 6 of us now. And you know, when I was told to be an actress by my mother, in the same year, essentially, she told my brother Tom that he would be the writer. So we waited and thought, that will be it. Tom will be the writer. But he never wrote. And then my sister Jenny was supposed to write, and she didn't write. And I waited because I had such a nice career as an actress. And then I finally thought, I can't wait anymore. It is upon me. This is my story, and I'm going to do it. So I think there was envy, probably because I've had such a good time as an actress and such good luck. But then to write fueled a fire. And I think that started when I was a little girl, because my mother clearly said, I like you, kitten cat feathers of joy. And when your mother acknowledges you in this way when you're little, in front of your siblings, and does it all the time, it's tough. But I love them very much, and they love me. So we have, of course, going to get through this and through everything else. They are deeply proud, and it's fine. But it can't be anything less than crooked, right? That's the path. Yes, ma'am.
Do you enjoy working on Orange is the New Black?
I adore it. I adore
It's so
it.
good.
Isn't it good?
Yes.
And how good is she? else, right? This woman, to be handed this on a silver platter at the age of, what was it, 57 when we started this thing? We're going into our 4th season. I just got my pickup notice today. Yay! That was like somebody saying, okay, baby, you've earned your stripes, and here it is, the most perfect dessert.
Yeah.
Right? Galina Red Resnikov. Because when they gave me when I went into audition, I had to audition. You know, you always have to audition. Nobody ever gives you anything. Nobody offers you anything. Star Trek was 3 auditions. The first one was a mess. I read about that. It was in Times Square in the pouring rain. Oh, what am I reading? Oh, it's for a starship. Oh, what starship? What? Star Trek? Do they fly around in space in capes? Oh, okay. But I had fallen in love with Tim Hagen. So I gave this absolutely appalling audition, at the end of which I said, keep the camera rolling. I just must tell you, ladies and gentlemen who are watching this audition, I must apologize for this terrible audition. But you see, I've fallen in love, and I'm going to meet him now. And my head's just not here. But good luck finding her. And they did. They found her. It was Jean-Pierre Cousteau. But she couldn't say engaged. She could only say, oh gosh. So they brought me back in, and that was it. And now, what was your question? Yes, what was it? Oh, yes, and then this one, right? They gave me a little piece of paper, and at the top it said, Galina Resnikov has been in prison for 15 years. She was born in Russia, but she's fully assimilated. We want the merest suggestion that she is Russian, right? But that is not what happened. She just flew into my imagination, and out of my mouth came this, right? And they all went, that's it, that's right. So it's just love. It's love. Love between Red and me, love between Janeway and me, and love between Mary Ryan and me. So I've had 3 major love affairs. That's very good, very good. Yes, ma'am.
I saw you in a play as Katharine Hepburn. Would you like to talk about what the difference is between television and doing theater?
Well, that was tough. That was a one-woman show. I was on stage for 2 hours all by myself. And in Act 1, I was young Katharine Hepburn. And in Act 2, I was the old one. And all that stuff. Every night, right? So I was really sequestered. I didn't have any fun. That was a high price. But the rewards of playing that were great because people loved it. She died during the run in New York, and people just loved the fact that she was still being celebrated on the stage. I loved doing it, but it's far more rigorous. Your life stops when you do something like that. Orange is the New Black is 13. We shoot 13 episodes. We're free for the rest of the year. It's just a magical thing. So I can do theater, I can do whatever I like, I can live my life. I don't have a preference. It's all about the role. If it's a great role, it doesn't matter where I do it or how. Thank you. Yes?
Oh, I was going to ask you about Orange is the New Black again. Is there something that stands out in what you've filmed so far? Some scene or some encounter within the ensemble? It's such a great ensemble that you work with.
Aren't they all great?
They're all great.
Because Joji Cohen's a genius.
Yeah.
So then what do you do when you're dealing with a genius?
Yeah.
You just say those words, right? But I think when Pornstache came into my kitchen and undid his belt, that was a bit really scary. But I wanted the chicken. And that guy this morning said I didn't like the one about the chicken. You know what? Really? What's wrong with him? Some guy interviewed me this morning. Not only did he not read the book, but he said, and I didn't like the episode about the chicken. I said, well, let's go to commercial. They were all great. And you know, Piper's my bunkmate now, so I love my scenes with Taylor. She and I are friends. We did another series together. I love them. They're intimate and they're revealing. I'm trying to help her get through. I have to give her the tampon sandwich and the line. She has to give it the back rub, and then, you know, that's how it goes. Pretty soon she'll be shaving my legs, and it's going to be fabulous. Yes.
My friend here went to the recent Star Trek convention, and she said that you said about season 4, Orange is the New Black, you had 2 words, Martha Stewart. Is there anything else that you can say about that?
They'll have my head for that. That's called a spoiler, you know. No, I don't know. I really don't know. And we never do know. I still don't know why I'm in prison. I mean, I know I had to do a little something with those Russian guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew they were bringing big black bags into my deep freezer, you know? But I don't know what it was that I did. I hope I took the fall for the family. You'll see what's going to happen. You'll see what in season 3. Lots of stuff. Really. Lots of stuff.
And she goes back to the place.
It's
She's
good.
not there.
One more. Would you say playing Red is the most fun you've had playing a character?
Would you say Red is the best character I've ever played?
The most fun. that you
Yeah.
had. Okay.
The most fun? Yeah. I would have to say that. Janeway was really, really challenging. Oh, that didn't know about you guys. I used to pray in my ready room before I came on the picture. Oh my God, have mercy on my soul. Japanese. Right? Red is red. I mean, it's to the point, right? And sometimes it's to the heart.
Yeah.
I have a lot to do with my family in season 3, so you're going to see what happens. Don't betray me. Don't you ever. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask me anything? I will answer. Otherwise, yes.
What else are you working on?
What do you mean? Somebody get me a sedative! No, but as a matter of fact, I am doing a workshop for a new play. Right after this book's over. I'm amphetamines, not sedatives. Working with Jenny Schwartz, the great playwright. We'll do that for 2 weeks. I'll do that with my friend Bernie. And then I will go right back into shooting season 4 on the 15th of June.
Excellent.
And we'll go right through Christmas. So it's great. I know I should be doing more. Yes, yes.
The process of writing this book, did it feel natural to you? Was it easy? Were there places where you fell into procrastination at all, or did it completely float for you?
No, there's no procrastinating with Little Brown as your publisher. First of all, I have to tell you that as an actress, I love a deadline, right? I love structure. So the minute we did the deal, I rented a house in the Outer Banks of Virginia, and I went down there and I wrote for 6 months, every day, from 9 to 4. Not every day from 9 to 4. There were moments of anguish. There were moments of indecision. There were moments of confusion. There were moments of grief. I'd have to take a walk on the beach. I'd have to cry. I'd have to take a break. But I wrote every day, almost from 9 to 4. Took a break, had a little wine, a little more, and the next day. I found it, as I said earlier, sublime. I don't know what that is about solitude. I think I need it. As much as I need society, I do need solitude. I crave it. When you grow up with so many brothers and sisters, you just want to be alone, right? So it looks like I'm going to have a little bit of that, for which I'm grateful and frightened. But it's good to be lonely. It's good to be lonely before you die. And I've never been lonely until now. Interesting. I mean, it's a delicious kind of loneliness. It's the first time in my life I don't have a man. Anyway, we're not going to get into that right now. I don't know why I said that. I actually left out of my mouth. Yes, yes. Anybody? Sign?
Let's
sign. Let's sign. Thank you.